Um, so I have this content hub idea. Well, it's well underway. It's not an idea. 3 content hubs on my website that will have 100 posts each, that are intended to cover the major questions. A lot of the questions. For new believers and people who want to grow in their faith, concerning Christ as our righteousness, sanctification, and reward. And you know that is, if you've been around, that's my topic. Christ is everything in the Christian life, and there's been systems of error erected around righteousness, justification, sanctification, and reward through false doctrine that teach us that the things that are given to us freely in Christ, secured by justification, are to be earned as a wage for our service. And that brings people into bondage at any level. So again, if you think that, justification just means you're going to heaven when you die, but your teaching on sanctification makes you think that unless you're living a certain way by works, you're not pleasing to God and you're out of fellowship. No, the life that is pleasing to God is a life that's full of Christ, who is the beloved Son, in whom the Father is well pleased, and righteousness qualified us to receive his Spirit, which is Christ as life, to be manifested in us through the knowledge of him as we enjoy him as a satisfying drink. So we drink of Christ, we come to him, and he is a fountain of living water springing up unto everlasting life within us. And he's a river of living water to flow out to others when we are satisfied and comforted in him. And that's the reality of sanctification. There's no sanctification apart from Christ himself washing us with the knowledge of himself by a renewal in the washing of the water of the word, which is how he loves and cherishes his own body and nourishes it, according to Ephesians 5. That's sanctification. What is the reality of sanctification? Is sanctification a matter of law keeping? Absolutely not. You can't keep the law anyway. Law, that just keeps you in defilement. No, sanctification is through the Spirit by belief of the truth. God has chosen you unto sanctification, salvation and sanctification by the Spirit through the belief of the truth. That's what it says in Thessalonians. I'm butchering the verse. But it all comes through the knowledge of Jesus Christ in truth, which means he's not the hard taskmaster. He's your bridegroom and friend, your brother and physician, shepherd, and even the ox to bear the burden. He's everything. And sanctification just means growing in the knowledge of him. And as we abide in him through that knowledge and become more and more comfortable resting in him, rather than shrinking back in fear and trying to earn his pleasure as a slave, as a payment for our works, rather we enjoy what's given to us freely in Christ through the knowledge of the truth, we're set free. And it changes our life. It transforms everything. It's being renewed in our mind unto transformation. Like it says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Transformation happens through the renewing of the mind, which comes from beholding Christ. Like it says in 2 Corinthians 3, we all with unveiled face, beholding and reflecting as a mirror the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into that same image from glory to glory. We just need to behold him. There's nothing else. You go to the Bible, it's not to find something to do in order to be blessed. You go to the Bible because the volume of the book is written of him. And he says, lo, I come to do your will. So he's done the will of God, not only in his work through death and resurrection, but now as our high priest, supplying to us himself as our life. Christ is our life. And our life is hid with Christ in God, and when Christ, who is our life, shall be manifested, then we will be manifested with him in glory. So we're looking for Christ to be manifested. And that's what Paul said. I'm seeking to be found in him, not having my own righteousness, which is out of the law, that which is out of God based on faith. I've counted everything as dung for the excellency of the knowledge of Christ, and I'm pursuing to know him in the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of his sufferings, being conformed to his death. What does it mean to be conformed to his death? It means I died to the law, I died to the world, and I died to sin and all of the demands in the world and in sin, from sin and from the law, so that I'm resting in Christ. And now Christ is my righteousness, and there's nothing good coming out of me unless he's supplying it. That's what it means to be found in him and not trying to establish your own righteousness. You're not trying to qualify yourself for the blessing of God. You're enjoying it. And the enjoyment is Christ himself as the living water. And it's to the degree that you know how to enjoy him that he is manifested, because he makes his home in our heart through faith. And roots us and grounds us in his love and supplies us with himself as food and drink. And that's how we live. That's the secret. That's the mystery of Christ. Christ in you, the hope of glory. So that's sanctification. And then, of course, reward. You know, if you think reward is a matter of earning a wage at the end of the day, then what the parables teach us to expect is the flip side, which is punishment. If you don't get a reward, you get punished. You get beaten. You get lashings. You get thrown into outer darkness. Now, those parables are not talking about anyone's salvation. They're not a generator of doctrine. They are to show you the works principle. You know, if you're going to work for a wage, number one, the wage is built, the wage comes not as the result of your toil or how long you worked, but based on the generosity of the master. And self-righteous people don't understand that. I worked all day, and yet you paid these ones, these 11th hour lazy, beaten sheep who came in and they're ungodly, just looking for a license to sin, and now they finally get in on the last hour harvest. And you pay them the same wage as me? I've been working out in the sun all day? That's not fair. He says, is your eye evil because I'm good? You worked, you agreed for your wage, and I gave the same to them. It's my prerogative to do so. And he also says to the prodigal son's older brother, who said, I've been working out here all day, keeping your commandments. You never had a feast for me, but you gave it free to the sinner over there. He's like, look, I'm not here to pay a wage. I'm here to give an inheritance to sons. And my son was lost, he was dead, and now he's alive. How can I not rejoice? That's what I'm looking forward to at the end of the day now. But if you think there's a beating post at the end of your race, I always say this, you will jump out of the stands, or out of the race, and go hide in the concession stands. You will not run the race. And legalism, which is simply substituting what God gives you freely through justification for your own efforts to try to earn it, under the fear that if you don't earn it, you'll be punished. That's like, it's absurd, but that's how we live. And that's how most Christians live, even the ones who are clear about justification by faith, they think. They know the doctrine, but they think it just means forgiveness of sin so they can go to heaven, and now they got to get to work. And they live in bondage. And they fight for the bondage, Anyway, this is what my ministry is about, and this all culminated in the book. Christ is our righteousness, sanctification, and reward. So I'm doing content hubs on my website, which are questions about the topics. So there will be a hub. Christ is our righteousness. Christ is our sanctification. Christ is our reward. Each of them having about 100 posts. And the post titles are questions like, well, if I'm supposed to, if the law is holy and good, and yet I'm not supposed to live unto it, how does holiness get worked out in my life? Or what does it mean that Christ is a righteousness higher than the law? Or what does it mean that the commandment, thou shalt not covet, slayed Paul? What does it mean to be crucified with Christ? What is Galatian error? Those are all some of the ones in the Christ as righteousness hub. Anyway, I'm excited about it because when you click on the link, you're led to a short post full of verses, which when you click on the verse, it pops up so you can see it right there. And then an outline. So if you don't even want to read the content of the post, you can read the outline. And I'm also added a feature, a text-to-speech feature, so you can just have it read to you. I don't recommend it reading outlines because they're very tedious to listen to. When a voice speaks an outline, it's not. But for the posts themselves, it's a great way to listen in your car or whatever. But this is going to be an awesome resource for new believers and people who are struggling in the faith. They've been believers for years, but they need this truth. It's all in bite-sized portions, and it really gets to the depths of the matter in each of these areas. So, for transparency, the way I did this was I took my book, Christ is Our Righteousness, Sanctification, and Reward, and I fed Christ is Our Righteousness to GPT. And I said, generate prompts and completions, which are questions and answers. And what it did was it asked a question, it analyzes the content, and then it asks a question, and then it extracts from the book an answer, and just kind of summarizes it. So it's pretty amazing. It's called semantic search, where it's not searching for specific records in a table. It's actually analyzing the meaning of the question, which it generated from understanding the meaning of the document, and then responding from the document, from various places, from my quotes, to assemble an answer. And the reason I was doing that was because I'm trying to train a model to only answer from my point of view. That's a big task. But as I was looking at this thing, I'm like, wow, these are great. This would be really good for new believers. So then I had it generate outlines of all the answers. Now at that point, it was all good because it was all from my content. But then I said, now make posts. And it did a fairly decent job of following the outline, but it inserts its own point of reference because it's not trained. So its own point of reference is just whatever's been said in Christian history. And so it would say, like, how is the law, how is Christ's righteousness higher than the law, or something like that. And in the details, it talks about how Christ is our righteousness, given to us as a free gift through faith. And the law shows us our depravity, and shows us why we are disqualified and why we need justification. And then it would say, and all that was fine, but then I noticed that it would append a little point. And so Christ gives us the righteousness that we are to strive for, or the law is a guide to know God, but it shouldn't be the end in itself. Little things like that. It's like, no. And what I've learned is that GPT is not a good writer. It's a good spitter out of what you've put before it. And that is incredible. But you just can't let it write, not if you're trying to. There's a difference between engaging with my spirit and writing answers to these things in a post and having it, regurgitate something. So, what I thought was I had all the outlines up, but it turns out I had all the posts up. And what I'm doing is I'm taking what it put together in the posts, and then I'm combing through and writing it myself and using it as an outline, which is fine. What I found is the best way to use GPT with Bible study stuff is to use it as a spell checker, a grammar editor, like, please present this sentence in a more organized fashion, and what I love about it is I can say, and please provide verses in parentheses to support the points, which it's awesome at that. It'll always find the right verses of whatever you say, because it does a search based on what you said, and then it finds the keywords that relate in the Bible and sticks them and puts them together. So it's really good at structuring content, but not so good at generating it. Anyway, so I had the posts up for a minute, and then I was reading through them. I'm like, oh, these have, number one, all those posts, but number two, I can see all the terrible little inserts. So I took them all down, and I'm rewriting them. And I'll have 50 up, hopefully by the end of the weekend. And I've got 50 more to go. And these are my writing, its outlines. So it's funny, because it's my writing in the book, but then through its analysis, it questioned and answered it and made little answers, which now I had it make outlines with verses, and then I'm writing the outlines and verses. I'm writing the post to the outlines and verses, and it's almost like I'm rewriting the book. But now it's in a format where, some people, that's a 500-page book. And a lot of people will really enjoy that as like a devotional read or whatever, and they are. But to be able to break it up like this is something unique. And, everybody goes to Google Got Answers, and that is the worst website you could go to. It's all Calvinist. Every answer is wrong, just about. Except maybe what is the Trinity, and maybe that's even wrong. But there is nothing like that from a truly free grace perspective. Even the ones that call themselves free grace are teaching works for reward. It's like, yes, we should keep the law, but we can't. So we have forgiveness, but we need to keep getting the forgiveness and trying to keep the law, or else we'll be punished. But punishment is because he loves us. It's just a mess. The so-called free grace position is more Galatian error. But to write from a truly Christ-centered, I'm crucified with Christ and Christ is now my life perspective, is very, very rare. I can almost find nothing with this perspective. And the good news about this organization of the data is that each of those posts has all kinds of keywords in it that will cue the search engines. So up until now, I've done no optimization of my website. In fact, I didn't even have some of the pages indexed. I didn't want Google to find it because I didn't want to deal with the people that come and say a bunch of obnoxious things, and my website didn't have that much on it anyway. But it's been growing, and this is going to kick it up in the search results in a major way. So that's going to be interesting, because a lot of people are going to be introduced to the content who weren't otherwise. The only way you got to my website was coming through, for the most part, the YouTube channel. And most people don't even know it exists, even though they're on the YouTube channel. But going forward, that's going to change. So we'll see what that turns into. Anyway, I just wanted to give an update on the idea. I did a community post on it, but almost nobody sees those. That I will be working on this. And don't forget, 2 Mountains 4 Views is now available. Let's see. I think that's it. I have a wedding today, so I can't talk long. I just wanted to let you know that for some of you, you've been visiting that content. Why I put it all on draft mode, and I'll be updating the replacements over the weekend. All right, take care.